Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to this session, which is called the Sharda Peeth and the Queen. We will be talking with Shri Rakesh Kaul ji. He will be speaking about a little bit about the history behind Sharda Peeth, and also mostly focusing on the Queen, the Last Queen of Kashmir, the book that he's written. And we are so glad to have him on our show today. Thank you so much for joining, Rakesh ji. Welcome.
Thank you, Amrita, and namaskar to everyone all, and for hosting this talk. I will be sharing with you the same talk that I gave in my seven city tour of India, which was concluded last month. And it's basically the story behind the story. So let's start. I'll share a PowerPoint with you, and let's start on that journey together. Uh,
Great. Great. While you're setting that up, let me also introduce our other panelists here. We are waiting for one more person to join us, but here is Omesh Kaul. Hi, Omesh. I know your audio is not working, but I hope it will in some time. We also have. He's from New Jersey, and he lives with his wife in New Jersey, New York area. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us. Hi, this is Manisha. Hi, Manisha.
Hey,
You muted. Hi, you live in California, and she's the program director of KOA Youth, the Kashmiri Overseas Association. Hi, glad to have you on board.
thank you. Thank you. Rakesh ji, namaskar. It's awesome to have you
Namaskar,
talk to
Manisha.
our panel.
Namaskar, Manisha.
Rakesh ji, if you can share this, you have shared the screen, but if you can click on the slides. Um,
Okay. And can you see it now?
yeah, I think yes, perfect.
Okay. Okay. So if the panel is ready, and I'm happy to, I know some of you, the audio is not working. You can certainly at the end of the session write out your questions. I'll be happy to respond to them. So Amrita, would you like me to begin?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, and if somebody joins in, I will let you know.
Okay. Kwachit, once upon a time. The beginning of this story was when I was researching Last Man of Kashmir, to which my wife belongs. I ran into this very tragic story of the nobleman Pandit Birbal Dhar, who was a prominent aristocrat in the early 19th century. And as part of a political tiff, his wife was abducted by the Afghan governor Azam Khan. Birbal's wife was a very noted beauty, and she knew the Khan would dishonor her. History tells us that she swallowed poison and that her last words were, Kashmir has yet a Kota Rani. Remember me to my husband. My heart was filled with sadness. Who was this Kota Rani, I wondered, because I'm a student of Kashmir's history and I'd never encountered her. Why was she important that she had served as a symbol of resistance for Kashmiri women as recently as the early 19th century? Much to my chagrin, I really couldn't find anything on her. And what little there was in the public domain did not warrant the use of Kota Rani by Birbal Dhar's wife as a symbol. So this lacuna, this gap, only made me redouble my efforts to research her. Let me move to the next slide. So, roots, just to tell you a little bit, my family roots are from a place called Ranavari in the valley of Kashmir. Uh, some of you who watch this video may be from Ranavari, and some of you may also be engaged in a battle against those residents in the valley, you and me, of our fundamental rights in the pursuit of happiness in our ancestral lands. We're fighting them, they're fighting us, not so nicely, I may add. And so Kashmir today is a conflict zone where all the parties have complete clarity on who they are fighting against. Now, perplexing, because this was the same Kashmir that the great historian Kalhana remarked that while the armies and kings would be fighting each other to see who would gain political power, the farmer and civilian would their heads to look at them. They were very clear on the separation of civil society and the power struggles that would occur. How could this very civil society, which valued its internal harmony so greatly, today, where adults are carrying guns and celebrating that their children have become stone throwers? What is of even greater importance, however, for all of us who care about Kashmir, to ask ourselves not what we are fighting against, but what is it that we are fighting for? What is it that's so important and humanity that Kashmir should? In a Darwinian world, things go extinct every day. So let me give you a hint. It's not about the land. It's not about the religion. It's not about the politics. It's not about the nationality or any other modern construct of identity. Yes, those are contributors, but they are not the core. And so it's very important for us. How and when did violence enter into the civil society of Kashmir? And what is it that we want to protect in this society? The Last Queen of Kashmir fundamentally is a real life story from the 14th century of a very beautiful and brave queen whose name was Kota Rani. And in the story, she is described captivating, but never captive. Her father's name was Ramachandra, and interestingly, her brother's name was Ravan. When I started on my historiographic journey, I did find that Kashmir has a beautiful geography. It also has a very ugly history. But in spite of the ugliness, I waded forward, and as I went forward, I heard the faint whisper of a woman's voice. And this hunt intensified. It took me 7 years of research from sources in Persia, Germany, India, to overcome one of the greater cover-ups in Kashmir's history. And there was a reason for the cover-up, which you will see very quickly as we go through this presentation. But boy, oh boy, Long and arduous years of work on this project, a beautiful and brave Kota Rani is justice has been her world of her liberal, joyful civilization has come to life. For you, and those of you who read the book, the journey through this love story may at times feel like Rama is carrying Sita on his pushpak vimana on the journey back home to Ayodhya. There'll be markers within your memes that your carried within itself, and they will surface, never to be hidden again. And your Pratyabhijna movement, recognition, is what my reward will be for my moment of sorrow, my Valmiki Shloka movement. Begins and ends at Sharda Peeth. There is an ocean there to talk about Sharda Peeth, and I have promised Amrita that in 2017, this panel and with the world, a talk in Sharda Peeth. But for the purpose of this story, we will start their education in Sharda Peeth, which was one of the great universities of India that people do not know about. People know about Nalanda, people know about Takshila, those were Buddhist centers. Sharda Peeth was the center, the crest jewel of Hindu thinking, Buddhist thinking, and Shaivite thinking. It is here that great scholars came, seekers came. It is here that Shankaracharya ascended the throne of wisdom. It's here that the Chinese scholars would make as their first stop. And it is here that Kota Rani is taught the grand equation of life. More powerful than Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc squared. What she is taught is that you can have it all. The way of life that Kashmir preached, that was essentially core to Kashmir, for full life. You can be it all, even to the point that you be Shiva, and to that state, yes, to that state of universal consciousness. And this equation basically says that in order for you to lead your full life, you have to understand that you have limitless potential. Limitless potential, but there is subcontraction within you because of imperfections, and these imperfections basically arise from ignorance. And that's the basic message that Sharda Peeth taught. Now, the very first step for life is to have that desire. Desire has to be there. Desire is the life. So any ideology that attempts to kill desire, that attempts to tell you to withdraw from desire, that tells you this life worth living, that there is a better life somewhere else, is the total antithesis of what the Kashmiri way of life is. We don't outsource to heaven or anywhere else something out there that we can't get here. We at Sharda Peeth maintained you can have it all right in your life, right here. Now, how did you get there? Well, she was taught that the way to remove these impurities, there were three techniques. They were conjoint techniques, and you could follow the pathway of seeking truth. You could follow the pathway of seeking beauty through your senses, or you could follow the pathway of consciousness seeking techniques. Now, the listener may say, well, I understand truth, I understand beauty, I understand consciousness seeking, but you know what? We don't, because we haven't been taught these techniques. The techniques that were taught at Sharda Peeth of represented 5,000 years of journey. The simple techniques of beauty seeking, Don Pollock of Columbia University, he's the person who's heading the Murthy Library Translation Project, very reputed scholar. He considers the work done in Kashmir around the whole aesthetics and beauty seeking over a span of 1,000 years as India's greatest contribution to humanity. So that was the power of these techniques. And of course, if you believe Sadhguru, principles of energy seeking and consciousness seeking are 12,000 years old. So these may be simple words, but these were very powerful techniques that were developed to empower you to lead a full life, to be all you can be. But there's another message here, and that's a very important message. The message is that through these techniques, person would have a different end game. Each person would arrive at a different end result. If you started walking on this journey, the immediate benefit, the immediate payoff, irrespective of what you do in your life, is that you will become more creative. Your creative power, your ability right away. And so, as you sought the higher truths, the benefits at the material level was creativity and innovation. And in the story, The Last Queen of Kashmir, Deva Swami talks about this when he says, what can be destroyed is finite, but what can be created is infinite. Lies humanity's victory. So to move on, she graduates from Sharda Peeth. Father takes her to Zila Pass place. He trains her to become a fierce warrior. Don't forget, she is from a Kshatriya clan, and it was a necessary prerequisite for anyone who wanted to become the ruler of unbowed Kashmir. Now, I do want to make a point here. Until the time of Kota Rani, Kashmir was never ruled by an outside invader. Never ruled by an outside invader. After Kota Rani, Kashmir has been ruled by every outsider that you can think of. So this gives you a hint as to where the real strength of a society lies. Kota graduates into the real world, comes to the court, and she is naturally subject to her own desires. She's a human being. But she quickly realizes in the court that she is now an object of desire. That as an object of desire, she is seen as the holder of unbelievable sexual pleasures, fabulous treasures, and a coveted kingdom. And she understands the desire in human beings, in sentient beings, and it is managing desire for any person to navigate their pathway through life. But she also understands that for desire to be sustainable, to be long lived, you have to tie it to a higher truth. And that's the difference between desires that are more noble and desires that are venal. Desires that are noble have longevity, desires that are venal are very short lived. Death enters the valley in the form of Dulacha. He's a Turkoman general. He attacks Kashmir savagely with 75,000 Ghazi warriors. He destroys the valley and its people completely. Realizes that winter is approaching, there's no food in the valley, so he has to leave in a hurry. He carries back 50,000 Kashmiris as slaves, leaving behind that has nothing, because the historian calls it as if army of locusts had invaded the valley and not even left a blade of grass. But as he tries to leave the valley, and the story covers this in a very dramatic way, snowstorm. He dies. Everybody. His army dies, he dies, and 50,000 young Kashmiri men and women, the flower of the society who had been taken as slaves, die. It is at that time that Rinchana, who had come from Ladakh to Kashmir as a refugee of Kashmir in the confusion, then he kills Kota's father. He takes her prisoner, he becomes king, and he forces Kota to marry him. Rinchana converts to Islam at the behest of Shah Mir, who is another immigrant refugee who had sought sanctuary in the valley of Kashmir. But his own best friend, as having become a traitor, he attacks Rinchana, and Rinchana eventually dies because of that attack. Point that Kota emerges as the Queen of Kashmir and the undisputed leader of her people. The kingdom selflessly and supports the arts. There is another horrible invader by the name of Achala who attacks Kashmir, but she achieves a spectacular military victory. If you like reading the story of Chhatrapati Shivaji, after you read the story of Kota Rani, you will see that she was in every which way as much of a match as Shivaji was. But interestingly, a year ago there was a big flood in Kashmir, and I think very few people in the valley know that it was Kota Rani who built the first canal to divert the waters of the river Jhelum so that it would not flood the city. Canal survives to this day, and Kotkol is the name. Kanya Kadal Bridge has been built on it. So a remarkable woman whose impact is even felt to this day. But what is most amazing is epitaph that Jona Raja, the great historian, gave when she died. And he says, as the canal nourishes the cultivated fields with water, so did the queen nourish the people by bestowing much wealth on them. Simply remarkable. How could somebody take a valley that had been totally decimated, its demographics destroyed by Dulacha, its wealth completely stolen, its agrarian system burnt and destroyed. How could she have suddenly, over the course of her rule, uh, brought back wealth to the people? And then Jonah Raja makes a very enigmatic statement. He says, uh, uh, and the way I've interpreted it is it's really the way to interpret it is as a Buddhist metaphor. She was to the kingdom what the moon is to the blue lotus, and the blue lotus is a symbol for peace, but more importantly, to the enemy, she was what that luminary is to the white lotus, and white lotus is a symbol of pacification. So she was able to enemies outside, and she was able to bring peace inside. That is something that I can tell you nobody has been able to do those things in Kashmir after her. I will proudly say this. If you go ask people in Kashmir, who was a great ruler of Kashmir, some of them may refer to Badshah, Zainuddin. But let's not forget, there were a lot of things about him that were very, very good. A lot of things about him very, very good. But since this is a talk about Sharda Peeth, let's not forget who went to Sharda Peeth and he destroyed the Murti there. So let's not forget that. And so let's recognize that Kota Rani was really the last ruler of Kashmir. There was religious amity, and she preserved the diversity. So I say with complete conviction that before there was a Badshah, there was an even greater Badshahi. Name was Kota Rani. So clearly, this meta epic took 12 years to make, and it's pretty clear that as a great leader, what Kota did for her rebirth of her nation and resurgence of her people, that she went into the strengths of her civilization. Leaders do that all the time. Gandhi did that also in trying to gain independence for India. And the core principles were really very simple. The first one is that at the end of the day, every human being operates best when they have individual freedom. You cannot achieve joy by being subjugated to any ideology. And this individual freedom in Kashmir is referred to as Swatantriya. But Swatantriya in Kashmir also carried with it a responsibility, which was lihaz. And the book talks about lihaz, which is the individual's responsibility that you want to lead your life your way, but you have a responsibility to create a society next to you can lead their life that way. And so, of course, an ideology entered Kashmir, which was very antithetical to this principle. It did not believe in individual freedom. It did not believe in the notion of lihaz. And so this was a great, great tragedy of Kashmir. The second thing that was very profound about Kashmir was it was the birthplace and the promoter. It was one of the great, great promoters of the notion that the world is one family. And it was the Kashmiri Pandit Vishnu Sharma who wrote the Panchtantra, who propagated that message and popularized it all around the world. Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the notion that the world is one family. But the final thing, which was very, very basic to Shardapeeth and to Kashmir, was the notion of oneness. That the highest truth is not dualist. There is no notion of the other. There's no notion of exclusivity. And most importantly, there's no notion of a megalomaniac lust for then gets sanctified by violence or any other techniques. So clearly, these were the three core things which led to the resurgence where there was a promotion of individual empowerment, diversity, and yet at the same time, a sense of belonging to something that united all of us. So, look, those people who have read the story, I'm very fascinated because people who read this story, they sort of, as I said, you'll start experiencing some recognition. You'll say, "Oh, gee, I sort of knew that, but now after having read this here, I recognize that." Then you'll start experiencing some resonance with the story. That resonance will grow into a reverberation, and then you'll experience a roar. And just today, uh, one of the founders of the biggest IT companies in India, he woke me up in the morning. He said, "Rakesh, I have been reading your story for the last 2 weeks, and I am so overwhelmed by it. When are you coming to India so I can spend time?" And people from all walks of life, the chief justices, the students, they're reading this and they're saying, this is very different. So let me tell you why this story is different. It's not just that it's about a great woman who had been covered up, but different because when I started writing the story, I made a decision that I would write the story in English, obviously, because that's the language I'm most familiar with, but that I would write it using the literary principles that were pioneered in Kashmir over the 1,000 years journey. Don't forget that the word Sahitya, literature, was first coined in Kashmir. Kashmir is responsible for of Indian poetics, and what is most joyful is that this year we are celebrating Abhinav Gupta's 1,000-year anniversary. Abhinav Gupta is the person who gave the world the notion of Shanta Ras. Shanta Ras is a state that is a state of peace, of joy, and this book. There are only 2 books that have ever been written in Shanta Ras because it's considered to be the most difficult ras to be able to compose a literary work. The first one is Mahabharat. The second one is Kalhanna's Raj Turangani. So the Last Queen of Kashmir, from a literary point of view, is only the 3rd book ever written in Shanta Rasa, but most interestingly, in English, it is the 1st book. So when you read it, it's written in English. I like the story, but pretty soon you'll start feeling, oh my, this thing writes differently, and I am experiencing something that is a very, very joyful experience that no other book that I have read could touch me. And the reason was that our Kashmiri writers, the ancient writers, the way they said it was, they said the word is the seed, the reed is the flower, and the rasa is the tasted fruit. So very, very important. But the book is more than just a book that's authentic to the story, authentic to the literary principles. It's also, in my humble submission, the most radical book to have come out of it. Most radical certainly lays claim to being one of the most radical books. And it's, when I use the term radical, it's not radical in the sense of nihilist, picking up a gun and shooting people. It's radical in the Saul Bellow sense that it's deeply researched, and because it's deeply researched, it uncovers some great gems. I've listed some of these gems here, but I'll just talk about 2 in the interest of time. One is that, there's clearly in India very few role models of real life women, strong women, that have been written about in our history. Kota Rani is certainly one of the eminent ones that now exists out there. But when you read about Kota Rani, you find out that India had an incredible notion of femininity. This notion of femininity was not the Eastern notion, men and women are two halves of a whole. It's not even the Western notion of uh, oh, women are equal to men in every aspect of life. No, no, no. The notion that comes out here is far greater, far stronger. The woman is seen as the grantor of immortality. The woman is seen as a force representing dynamic, fearless symmetry. The woman is seen as being whole in every which way. And so you will get that. The second thing I want to highlight is, this mistaken notion that people often say, oh, Kashmiri Pandits have been non-violent, they are peaceful people. It's always surprising to them when I tell them that the longest manual of war has been written in Kashmir. Shlokas, I think, longer than the Ramayana. And it was focused only on one question: how and when is it right to kill for a Kshatriya? So these guys were not namby-pamby people by any score. They were seen as very fearless warriors. So want to correct that. But there are other things in this book, as I said, that are very radical and therefore interesting. I'd like to very quickly end and just leave one or two questions. Why read anything in history? I think the Hindu review of this book states that the mark of a good historical fiction, insights and solutions to the world today. And there's a whole lot to ponder in The Last Queen of Kashmir. So this is the first book that actually identifies the Chaturanga formation. I call it Chaturanga, 4 wings to it that came into Kashmir. And to this date, India has not been able to recognize it and then figure out how to contest this battle formation which has destroyed Kashmir. A center that was the place where heroes were created has now become a center where you have the groomers of the anti-hero. And it also begins to offer a solution in terms of how do you go about solving this problem, manifested itself in the form of a monster in Kashmir. So let me end that is right not only to embrace Kota, but the time is right to spread her word with conviction. And there are 4 great things about her. She clearly emerges as one of the first rulers in the history of humanity who laid down her life fighting against the existential threat that we face even today. And she was a fighter for individual freedom. She was a fighter for diversity. And she was a fighter for progressive thinking. And she's the first person that, as a ruler, laid down her life for that. She was opposed to these exclusivist, dualist, hegemonic, religious power frameworks. And in that sense, we honor her. The second reason that she's important is that her rule really represented the culmination of a voluntary cultural social link, 5,000-year-long link with India. After her, there has been a sustained campaign to undercut, undermine India, to try to show that Kashmir is really linked with Central Asia. Yeah, there are links, obviously. It was a fulcrum state, but it was indivisible with its connection with India. The third reason that she's interesting is that she was a unifier. Let's not forget that Islam had entered Kashmir 500 years before Kota came to rule. So it had been there. There was everybody. The book actually has a Jewish character in it. She was a unifier. And after Kota, the place just fell apart. But most importantly and lastly, what the book reveals is Kota as the supreme trustee. Uh, Scholars across India, across the world, parrot like will make a statement that the apex, the cresting of Hindu thinking happened in Kashmir. So they talk about Kashmir being the crown of India. But uh, this highest understanding of not just Kashmir, but India and Hinduism buried in texts that are written in Sharda script. And we don't today have a single scholar that actually is working on it. Now, again, I come to the Darwinian point. Uh, if it disappears, who cares? But then you look at the fact that 20 universities around the world are stunned by this civilization, by its amazing understandings, and are madly racing to study that. So that gives you some confidence that what happened in Shardapeeth, what happened in Kashmir, is something that are eternal truths. Kota was the last trustee. We have to restart with her and go back and rediscover these treasures that await us. So I took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but thank you for your patience. I certainly can answer a few questions on the story.
Thank you so much, Rakesh ji. This was wonderful. I think we have gotten a little more idea. I mean, I have gotten a little more idea about the book and a little bit more about the history and some very unique things. Thank you so much for the talk and the presentation. It was, I know it's an exclusive presentation, and it was not public, and you made it public just for us. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I'm happy to answer any questions the panel may have. So if you have any questions.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell, before we go into the questions, and I wanted to just tell everybody that I had started this program, and it was called Sharda Peeth. I started it on KOA Youth, and I was at Rakesh Uncle's house that day when I was designing the logo for Sharda Peeth, the program for KOA Youth, and I was. We were talking a lot about the book, and I was of course I have the book, and I was reading it, and I picked that term from there because it made sense for the segment that we had in mind, that there would be speakers speaking about history, the culture, the heritage of Kashmir, for the benefit of for the benefit of mainly youth, the Kashmiri youth in America, but also everybody else who's Kashmiri in general. So thank you for that idea, and I want to. I have a few questions myself, but I would like the others in the panel to like go ahead with their questions.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Umesh. I have joined this webcast for the first time. Rakesh, hello. I haven't got a chance to meet you for a long. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it was a great topic. I got to learn a lot. I wanted to know definitely about, in one of the articles, I think, which you have written in some newspaper, you kind of pointed to the fact that current political situation in Kashmir, in fact, like the Mehbooba Mufti, which is the kind of new leader in Kashmir, you saw some, glimpse of Kota Rani in her, and kind of asking or pointing to that fact that maybe she can become the next Kota Rani, not in literally sense, but exactly. Do you still think that's possible, or that's a dream which we cannot achieve in this era?
So, brilliant question. Let me first make a broader point, and then I will address your immediate query. What is being referred to here by Umeshji is that I had written an article where I had done a comparison between Mehbooba Mufti and Kota Rani. I had talked about some similarities that, at least based on public data, she has the Mars in the same house as what Kota Rani story. He is now, I think, in the public domain, it says that she's now separated from her husband. Uh, she became a ruler after her father died, the way Kota Rani became a ruler after her father died. So I alluded to these similarities, which is what Umeshji is referring to. But let me make a broader point, because your question touches on it. Several people have come to me and said that this is a book on history. How true is it? And I say it's 100% authentic. And many historians studied Kashmiri history, especially from the Western lens, have been critical of Kalana and others because they have not displayed precision data or some other things. So here's the important point. The Kashmirians, when they wrote history, they wrote it, Kalana writes it, and he is quite open. He says, I want people to understand that history is an art form. But most importantly, the Kashmirian approach to history was this idea of archetypes, that certain characters reappear. They reappear. And this notion also exists in our spiritual framework where we talk about avatars. They reappear. They reappear. And that's why you read history, so that you can learn about it. And then when there's a reappearance, you'll understand it. So let me make an interesting point. One day should do a comparison between Shahamir, who is a central character in the story, Abdullah. And you will see that there are some very interesting parallels between the two. So now coming to Mehbooba. Mehbooba is the first woman ruler of Kashmir after Kota Rani. After Kota Rani. She is facing far greater gravitational pulling her than Kota Rani. See, Kota Rani had complete clarity and complete conviction as to what she was fighting for. And she didn't mind risking her life for that. We have to see if Mehbooba Mufti has the same sense of clarity and conviction, or is she going to end up basically being just like most other political leaders of Kashmir, some formula or the other, which will not have any traction? The jury is out. We'll see, Umesh.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Quickly, we have about 8 minutes for the next session to start, which is on entrepreneurship, which will be given by Rakesh ji again. We are having this back-to-back session, but I wanted to ask this very important question to me, and I'm pretty sure our viewers, which are KOA youth centric. We had a discussion recently, and there were like a few questions between the youth who grew up here, and they do not find or they do not associate with the history and the culture of Kashmir, and they do not feel the necessity to be associated with it. And related to that, I would say also there are our elders would sometimes say, it's okay, it's over, forgive and forget and move on. So what do you have? It's just a 2-point question. And what would you like to tell to the youth and also to the elders?
So I'll answer the question this way. There's this whole science of epigenetics that basically has proven scientifically that if your ancestor 7 generations ago had a bad experience on something, then you will carry those memes within you, and 7 generations without knowing it subconsciously, you will have a fear of that thing. So the scientists have proven this. So whether you like it or not, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can be in the West, you can be in Kashmir or whatever, you are carrying your history within you. So that's the point one. Now, every single deep thinker who has looked at this situation, whether it's Kierkegaard who said, to live life forward, you have to think it first backward. One of the ancient Indian texts says, you can only look as far forward, backward. So history, and I see this a lot, young intellectuals especially, are very ignorant about history. And because they're very ignorant about history, they are unable to benefit from the lessons that have been learned and relearned. So history is a treasure trove of wisdom. History is a treasure trove of knowledge. And the more you learn, the more you will understand yourself and the more effective you will be.
Great. Thank you for answering that question, Rakesh ji. I think Manisha has unmuted herself, so I'm assuming she has a question.
Yes. Very much, Rakesh ji. That was such brilliant storytelling. Um, so my question is more in terms of similar to what Amrita asked. So what books or what kind of literature do you suggest that youth members should read or go through in order to understand our history and our culture and our heritage better?
A coursework.
Other than your book, definitely.
No, you should. You should definitely read my book, and that's, I think, a key to this universe. So, Manisha, Kashmir is a universe. Let me ask you this: in your day-to-day life, where does your proclivity lie? What do you like? Which area do you like? Do you like to watch movies? Do you like to dance? I mean, what is it you like, separate from the fact that we all have to make a living? And what is it that you like? What are you curious about?
Ice skating. But other than that, I really enjoy reading history, just figuring out where we came from and the historical background of things and places.
Okay. So,
if I may add, because I know Manisha for some time, she loves the fact of helping people and the fact that people are helping each other. She likes that. She likes service. I think, if I've understood her right.
Oh, Amrita, thank you.
okay. So, if it comes to history, my suggestion is that you view it as a journey. You view it as if you're traveling through time. And the first thing when you want to do history is find a small group, find a couple of people, and maybe once a month you get together for a cup of coffee or lunch with this group. It can be girlfriends, whatever, because journey makes it so much more fun. So let me start the Nilmat Purana. Have you heard of the Nilmat Purana?
Yes.
So now, you know,
I'm old enough.
just give me a general range. Give me a general range. General range, 20 to 30, 30. Okay, all right. So then I can speak to you freely. One of the delightful festivals that's approaching us in America is something called Valentine's Day, right?
America and the rest of the world, but yes.
Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So now, when you read the Nilmat Purana, and you see the life of the Kashmiris. Because Nirmal Purana is just only about the different celebrations of the Kashmiris. You find not only were we such a joyful people, but you find this festival called Madana Trayodoshi. Talk about the ultimate Valentine's Day. Ultimate Valentine's Day. So the night before festival, the husband would take a big pitcher of water. He would put flowers in it so that it would soak all night long and get fragrance. Now bear with me because I know what it means to really lead life fully. Next morning, he would give a body scrub to his beloved with that fragrant water. And then in those days, Chinese silks were in demand and other beautiful fabrics. The wife would wear those. Then they would go out and picnic. This is the 4th century, I'm telling you. This is how they would celebrate Kamadev, the god of love. Madana was Kama. That was the name for it. They come home, think of Kama in front of them. There would be other things. They'd do puja. And then they would celebrate as the evening went on. And I don't want to go any further. But if you read Nirmal Purana, you will get a great sense of all the joyful things Kashmiris did to celebrate life. So that's a good book to start, and you will enjoy it greatly.
Thank you.
Great. So we're on dot 12 p.m. We are on schedule, but I think we have answered all the questions. We have a few comments coming in on Facebook that it's been very informative, a very informative session, and there is some links to Rajiv Malhotra's book. It was great to have you, Rakesh ji. Thank you so much for this, and please don't go anywhere because we will have another session with Rakesh ji on entrepreneurship. I don't know if I think most of us know that he is a very successful businessman, and we want his expert advice and a commentary on entrepreneurship, and that would be on another link. But we will be closing the session right now. The Sharda Peeth and the Queen. Thank you so much, Umesh, Manisha, for joining. Please join the next session. I will be sending you an invite soon.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Can I get a 1-minute break?
Yeah, sure. You can take a break. I will send you a link and you can join whenever you like. Okay, thanks. Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.